Hey, this is Tom Nash, and I have an important warning for all investors. Check it out. What happened last week is insanely rare. We have Monday starting at minus 4.2%, which is a cataclysmic crash, and somehow the week ended up on the positive with plus 0.2.
You sat down, I said, man, what a week. And you said, I've never seen anything like this in my life.
I haven't. Never seen that.
That only happened 13 times in the entire history of the S&P 500. The week after this craziness, historically, is usually the worst week out of all the following years, so to speak, right? And usually what happens in the week right after is 7 out of 13 times we have red weeks, 6 times we have green weeks. But the median return on the S&P 500 in the first week after such crazy -4 and then a positive ending to the S&P 500 is negative. So the following week, the week we're about to start today, is usually a problematic week. It's a crapshoot, but the median return is actually negative. And it's the only time you get a median that is negative. If you look at the 1 month, 3, 6, 12 months, it's always going to be positive. 1 month after this crazy week we've seen, 5 of 13 are red and the rest is green. The median return is 4.15% on the S&P 500. 3 months, even better, 4 out of 13 red. The median return, 5.4%. And then the 12-month is absolutely insane. Only 3 red periods. But here's the kicker. The median return is 21.74% on the S&P 500 in the 12 months following this occurrence. So the good news is very simple. The good news, if you are a long-term investor, the 12-month period after last week is historically very, very good. 80% of the time, you're going to get green, and the median is almost 22%. That's great. And the good part is it gets better with every holding period that you stay in the market, which is just another example of why time in the market is so important. But the week after, the one we're about to start today, and the next few days, this is the problem. This is extremely volatile, unpredictable, and a median return of minus 0.45%. Now, for traders, that's great because traders love volatility and craziness. But for long-term investors, I just want to make sure you understand the red you're going to see this week, if it happens, is just a precursor for a very good year. Always it starts red and volatile, and then by the end of the year, it actually gets better and better and better. So don't be panicked if you're seeing red this week or even next week. And I want you to pay attention to this. The S&P 500 started the year at 4740. It ended the first half of the year at 5277. That's 11.3%. The 10 plus percent in the first half of the year on the S&P 500 is not a usual thing as well. That only happened 23 times. And every time that happened, we have the stats. The average return on the second half of the year is plus 10%. Not bad. Now, what's interesting is that August was the worst month of all the months remaining until the end of the year. It's absolutely insane. Check it out. So August, on average, after you've done 10 plus percent in the first half of the year, is negative 0.6%. Then you have September positive 1%, October positive 2%, and then November 2.2%, December 2.9%. And what this means is historically, after a great first half of the year where we have 10% plus, August is going to be the worst month. Then you have September flat, and the party starts in October, November, December, just like Tom Lee said. History doesn't lie. Now, so far, we're down 3% in August. So we might actually be due for a little bit of a correction upwards, but we'll see because averages, they have outliers. Not every single August is going to be 0.6%. Maybe this time we have negative 3%, negative 4%. But the point I'm making here is, as a long-term investor, I want you to understand that August is historically the worst month of the year after a strong first half. And this playing out doesn't take away from the fact that October, November, December is going to be the strong month. So as a long-term investor, what you want to do, if you actually believe this, and if you convinced that this is more likely than not to happen, is that you accumulate in August, you accumulate in September, and then you accumulate slower and slower and slower as the market starts moving up in October, November, December. So the time to DCA and to DCA into weakness, to double down DCA, is actually in August and a little bit in September, not when the party has already started and everybody's stampeding back into the market. We're looking down the barrel of a Fed rate cut. During the last 4 cutting cycles, and this is interesting, The S&P 500 did an annualized return during the cutting cycle before the Fed was finished. As the Fed was continuing to cut, the average return on the S&P 500, the annualized average return was only 5%, which is about half of the usual, right? So the markets don't do really well historically during the cutting cycle themselves. But here's the crazy part. Once the Fed is finished, once the Fed stops the rate cuts and said, okay, we're done, we're finished cutting, the performance of the market is absolutely insane. Check this out. 1 year after the Fed stopped their rate cuts and finished the cutting cycle, the average return on the S&P 500 in the last 4 cycles was 25.5%. So what happens here? It's very simple. The cutting of the rates puts money in the system. Money in the system takes time to stimulate the economy and get everybody excited again. It doesn't happen overnight. It happens. It takes a few months, 6 months, 12 months, 18 months. But at some point, all this money is inevitably going to infuse into the economy, cause a massive eruption, which happens, as you see in the data, about a year after the Fed is done cutting. So if you're expecting the Fed cuts to magically start a rally, that's not necessarily what's going to happen. That might happen, but it has more to do with the state of the economy. Basically, the only way the Fed rate cuts cause a massive explosion upwards is if the economy is great and a lot better than people think. And in that case, you already have a great economy, which is boosted by more money, cheaper money. Then in this case, you might get a rally. But if the economy is in a bad shape, we're probably going to have another year of mediocre kind of sideways performance, or even worse, before the Fed rate cuts actually take effect and the market has that 26%, 12-month period. So all in all, this is just to warn you to not get overly excited, to slow down, to DCA, keep the steady course we've been doing for the past 18 months. It has paid out so far. It will continue to pay out. I'll see you in the next one. Be careful, okay?